you're coming to the showcase in October, what are you going to be talking about there?
So I thought it was worthwhile focusing on what we currently identify as a kind of key potential source of risk for investors in the coming years. And that's really about a world of higher average and much more volatile inflation. And when I say higher inflation, really the way I would characterize that is thinking about if 2% was sort of the floor for inflation for the last few decades, we think that, if it was the ceiling for inflation, crucially, over the last few decades, if inflation was very subdued and very stable for a number of years, really since the early 1980s up until 2020, we now think that 2% level is likely to be the floor for inflation going forward. And the reason we focus and think about that so much is it's a very different world that's going to have some very important implications for portfolios and asset class relationships. So what I'd like to try and answer the question during the kind of the conference is about how investors can protect and diversify in a world where 2% is perhaps the floor inflation for inflation going forward. What are the opportunities? What asset classes, as shown by the data, are the right ones to own in those environments of perhaps higher and rising inflation? And I think we got a flavour of how uncomfortable those kind of scenarios can be in 2022. And arguably markets are pretty confident that inflation is now squashed. But that's also giving investors the opportunity to buy the right and helpful protective assets today at pretty attractive prices.